Ladies and gentlemen, Football Scoop Podcast is back. I'm Scott Roussel. I've got college football expert John Brice, got Football Scoop content manager, high school football coach extraordinaire Doug Samuels on the line with me. Gentlemen, today I got us on here to talk a little bit about the upcoming month. Today is November 17th. By December 17th, before Christmas, a lot is going to happen. A lot of things happen in the coaching turnover world, with coaching searches, with hiring head coaches and assistants. Nobody wants to be working Christmas Eve or Christmas. We have portal action. We have early signing period in December as well. So there's a lot going on. The way the calendar falls this year, the weekend of the 25th, 26th of November is the end of the regular season FBS. The weekend of December 2nd is conference championships. So then they have the portal opens. John, the portal is a shorter version than last year?
Portal is a shorter version. It opens Monday, December 4th officially for non-graduate players, that players are just going into the portal. And it's only a 30-day window this year as opposed to a 45-day window that it has been since it was first passed a few years ago. So this is a change. This is a change that coaches wanted. It's a change that student athletes seem to be okay with. But it's 15 fewer days. You guys can all remember this past January, we were at FCA in Charlotte, and a number of coaches either arrived late or had to leave early because they were hosting official visits for portal kids. Well, this should be eliminated by this new calendar.
Early signing period, December 20th opens, Doug, just for a couple of days?
Yes, I believe so.
And okay, so regular season ends November 25th-ish for most teams. Conference champions December 2nd. You got 3 weeks-ish. Portals open, recruiting is ongoing, signing period. All that has to happen. And if you have a coaching change, like let's say, we all are aware Texas A&M is already in their process interviewing people. Mississippi State is trying to do the same, get some traction. But for the regular guys, the regular folks that have it after season head coaching change, for example, let's talk about potentials. And I don't want to get to candidates. I just want to talk about the process. UCLA, Houston, Arkansas, if those were to open and they open after the regular season, say November 25th, you still got, ample time. It's not a huge problem, in my opinion, to get a coaching search done in 2 weeks. That's no problem at all. The predicament it creates is if UCLA, Houston, or Arkansas hires a sitting head coach, it creates a massive time squeeze in the back end for that other team. John, just some thoughts there.
Yeah, I would a little bit disagree with you. The moves that are made inevitably that weekend after Thanksgiving, I think are almost becoming too late with where the cycle sits, with where the calendar sits right now because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, because of all these other factors that were not there 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I think it shrinks the window. I think it makes it that much more pressing. And so if you're waiting until Sunday the 25th, you're frankly behind Texas A&M. You're behind Mississippi State. Some of that's not some of these institutions' fault. They're not planning to lose their coach, but inevitably somebody out there is going to lose a sitting head coach for one of these other openings, and they're going to have less time to deal with it. So I do think the timeline is significant. I do think if there are programs that really feel in their guts they're probably about to have to make a change and make a shift in leadership, that the ones that are proactive stand a better chance of quote unquote getting it right.
I enjoyed your clarification of shift there. Thought you did a good job coming back to that. Okay, I'm with you. I don't know that as an athletic director who's worth his salt, I feel pressure to do it in season. I think you can allow your coach, give it everything he's got, run out the season as he should. I think you have your list, and I think if you're a competent athletic director, you know who you want to interview anyway. You set up those interviews, then 4 or 5 days, you might bring 1 or 2 guys to campus, and you make your hire. You probably don't even bring 1 or 2 guys to campus. You probably go meet them if you're a big Power 5. It's the secondary impact of those that
Right.
would be the challenge. If you have a very stable head coach, you're hoping as the athletic director, nobody comes for him, right? And, you got Jeff Traylor. Well, you're aware that Jeff Traylor's been at the top of the market. Jeff's going to, he's being sought at potentially 2 places, maybe 3 places already. So UTSA's athletic director's got to be ahead of that, right? They've already got to be working on their list.
Yeah, and I think Doug can chime in here, whether he agrees or disagrees with me. Obviously, I just think that doing it later with the transfer portal, with the early signing period, which is December 20th, only through the 22nd, it's just different. I talked to a player personnel director last night, and he point blank told me, he said, bro, if we get our things done, we won't sign anybody in February. Now, they might still sign somebody out of the portal after the first of the year, but their goal is to have their 2024 recruiting class done on December 20th, 2023. Now, there's some residual impact for the high school kids, especially. I think that more of those guys are having to wait longer on offers, or they're having to, I think, end up maybe signing some FCS deals, which is one of the reasons why I contend FCS is about better than it's ever been right now. I just think there are multiple intricacies that it's not just looking at a calendar and saying, okay, well, the season ends November 25th is the last day of regular season games. We can make our move the 26th and have all sorts of time. You can make the move the 26th, but you better be darn efficient.
I think you're
Sure, I was muted. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Doug, let me ask you a question. Head high school football coach, you have college recruiters coming in all the time. They've been coming in of late. Are you seeing stress from the head football coaches or new potential head football coaches? Are you feeling any change, any stress from those guys with regards to recruiting high school athletes?
Yeah. So the FBS guys that come in, they seem to come in later than they have. I've been a head coach going on 6 years now. So 6 years ago, they would come in kind of as the regular season was wrapping up and swinging and talk about some guys. Not now it's a few weeks later. So and I've been at 2 small schools. I can only imagine it's a little bit different at the bigger high schools that are churning out Power 5 talent all the time. But that it has a trickle down effect. We've got 2 of the top programs in Division II in our backyard in Ferris State and Grand Valley, and Saginaw Valley that's over in the Detroit area, and they they're testing the transfer portal as much as FBS guys are. It's kind of the trickle down effect, and then goes all the way down to the Division III guys and NAI guys that come in here that are being very selective about how they recruit because they know they're going to get some bounce back kids from the portal. For the FBS guys and the major college guys, we don't have a whole lot of FCS programs around us that come and recruit. But I was talking to an FBS coach about one of our kids recently, and he just told us point blank, like, we don't know what our roster availability is going to be. And this kid's, one of our kids is a preferred walk-on type kid, but doesn't know what their roster availability is going to be like until after that second signing day is kind of when things clear up. A lot of programs want things to be cleared up that first signing day, but in the MAC, you get that trickle down effect from the Power 5. And so they don't really know what their roster looks like until after that February signing day. Muted again.
You're muted.
Golly, this mute thing's killing me. It's a great point, Doug. So like these group of 5 type programs, they're kind of in a hold. They want to recruit certain kids, but if those kids get big Power 5 offers, they're gone. So it's not a great use of the resources at the group of 5 level to go, constantly be visiting, recruiting these kids. Secondarily, they got to wait and see what happens transfer portal if kids leave as well. So they're not sure what their needs are, their roster is. So that's why the group of 5 FCS is kind of a second wave. I totally understand that.
And again, I just think with the early signing period, and then after that signing period ends on Friday, December 22nd, obviously you're transitioning into the Christmas holiday and the New Year's holiday, and you're transitioning into a dead period, which makes it that much more difficult if you're a new staff. Even if you've planned to be a new staff and know you're making a change, you still have time timing constraints. But if you're a staff being put together because of a change and you're coming in all new, you're either trying to salvage relationships that you almost certainly did not have beforehand, or you can't salvage those relationships and you're almost starting over from scratch. So with the early signing period, as much as the portal and NIL are impacting other elements, I just think the early signing period, first and foremost, those other elements, secondary, shrinks how much time you have before you significantly fall behind. And if you come in and you can't salvage the great majority of a class, I mean, look, if you've got 20 guys committed that are signing early signing period in December, if you can't come in and save more than half that class, then you're going to be really hard pressed to fill a full recruiting class, even with the February signing period in the portal. And again, you're making a change in some cases because you're dissatisfied. So if you're dissatisfied and you're making a change and taking a step back, even though you're hitting the reset button, I think you have the risk of setting your program even further back, again, if you don't do it in a timely, efficient manner.
John, I would think that new head coach gets hired, athletic director wants to, accelerate that process a lot so that new head coach gets hired with ample time to make his personnel decisions, recruiting, all that. But I would also think there's a lot of education that has to happen to the head coach. He has to be educated on where do we stand with NIL, who are our assets that can help us, how is money being deployed here. I think there's a fallacy. I think you have these indexes created by media companies that are made up, that aren't realistic. Saying, oh, his NIL value is $670,000. And then you speak to that young man or his position coach and he goes, yeah, he got 10 grand here and he got 10 grand there. Like, wait, they said his NIL index value is 670,000. They're like, he's like, yeah, that would be great. But I mean, that no one's paying him money like that.
Yeah.
But 10,000, 20,000, 80,000, those deals happen. And the head coach needs to understand who are our players and what kind of money is available. John, how does that impact things these days?
I'm really glad you brought that up. That may be one of the best points of this entire podcast today, because you're right. That's going to be an upfront conversation between an AD and his potential head coaching candidates. And specifically, it will become a much more detailed conversation once an AD has selected his primary candidate. They're not going to give away too much. The NIL space is so murky right now, and everybody's wondering exactly what another school is doing, that in that interview process, they're not going to overshare, because if you don't get that coach or you decide to go a different direction, you don't want to risk having given away trade secrets. But once the decision is made, I would imagine it's going to carry out to where the football coach is going to say, my staff will handle all personnel. What money do we have to go handle all personnel? So I think that's a really valuable point. Now, a lot of these NIL deals are already being negotiated right now. I know for a fact there are guys who have not yet entered the portal that will enter the portal early next month. They're already having their marketing reps or whomever discussing and negotiating their NIL deals. So again, there are just so many new layers, I think, in the coaching carousel, and it's getting a little more nuanced every year. But I think this is maybe the most layered coaching carousel in the 4+ years, I think, that I've been with you guys at Football Scoop.
I'll tell you, there's a really unique little nugget in here. So football coaches really enjoy being football coaches and mentors to young men, developers of young men. They're not necessarily the greatest NIL business. They often have a guy, right? It's a guy who works for the head coach, and he kind of interprets, hey, here's how the money flows. And he understands institutionally where the money is and how it all works. If he goes with the head coach to another job, institutionally, that old place is lost. Do you follow what I'm saying? For example, Brian Kelly's got a guy at LSU. He knows every person who is giving NIL money and where they're deploying the NIL money and all that stuff. If Brian Kelly were to get hired today and leave, and he takes that guy with him, LSU's athletic director, Scott Woodard, he knows a lot of that stuff, and he's got somebody else in athletics who does, but the football staff, they just lost that person. And there's a lot of on-the-job training, and you got to bring somebody new, and it's a new challenge in college football. That's all I'm saying. And it's a heck of a position if you can become that person.
That GM title was something that people laughed at like 5 years ago. It was just kind of a made up title that you gave a senior type guy, and now that I would imagine that's how that's being used by a lot of FBS programs.
Yeah, that's the GM point is really good, Doug. And I would say, honestly, in a lot of ways, the GM roles that I'm familiar with that have emerged in Power 5 football now are primarily doing three major things. They are, in a lot of cases, figuring out what the assistant coach's salary pool is going to be and advising the head coach on how to disseminate the additional money and to dole out those raises. They're also very in tune with the NIL, what their own budget is. They're trying to find out what other schools are truly paying, not allegedly paying. And then the third thing I think GMs are doing a lot more of right now is they're more involved in future scheduling and handling and helping with some non-conference scheduling down the road, meeting with the AD and saying, okay, I think we can do a neutral site game here. Can we do a 3-game series, 2 at home, 1 away here? I think, to Doug's point, that a great one. Those are the 3 primary responsibilities of a GM right now in college football.
Yeah, and I think in the past there used to be a personnel aspect there. The GM still has some personnel oversight, but now there is a bigger role for the director of player personnel. He now has recruiting and scouting underneath them. Very different. One's looking at high school, one's looking at it's like a pro personnel concept for other college with the portal.
And one other thing one other point I would make in terms of transitioning and trying to figure out what you have to spend in the portal and what you've got. I'll use an example. 2 different ACC coaches talked to me this fall about a kid who was able to go ahead and go into the portal. And I don't want to give away a position, but they started talking to this kid and they were saying, what's important to you? And the kid point blank told him, he said, look, there are 2 factors, money and being developed. I know you guys can develop me. I've seen who you've put in the league. How much can you pay me? Because here's what another school has already promised me. And one of these coaches said, if that's what that school has already promised you, then you'll get developed here. But if money is that big a factor to you, then we've got to end this right now. And I appreciate you and wish you the best of luck. I bring that story up to say a coach coming into a situation may realize that there's been an unofficial NIL deal struck or that there's movement to have an NIL deal done with the player, but he could be coming from a program where he already knows he's going to have 2 offensive linemen coming with him, and he doesn't need this cat out of the portal anymore. So again, I just think it's yet another unintended consequence, but a real consequence of the way the carousel and the coaching cycle is working from a timing standpoint right now.
Doug, you got any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
I do not. I don't. I think you guys hit it well.
I think we will see an accelerated process. I agree with you, JB. Things have already started, for certain programs, obviously. Michigan State, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, trying to get things going. San Diego State's got a little plan. They're not as big and as wealthy. Anyway, things will move. It's the secondary hires that, boy, it's a real crutch for those athletic directors. And this is where you see who's a great athletic director and who's I got a search firm that I owe a favor to, so I'm going to hire a search firm. Reality. As always, we'll keep you posted. Footballscoop.com every single day. At John D. Brice 1, at Coach Sam's on Football Scoop. Y'all have a great day.